Hey everyone, I'm Chris, and I'm here to rank Game of Thrones Season 3 from worst to best. Season 3 is when the show started gaining popularity. After this season, everyone was hearing about the show, and the audience just grew. It's a very dark season, honestly. Not much goes right for our characters, and it's essentially a build-up to one single moment that changes the show forever. But before we get to it, because I know all of you who know the show want to hear me talk about it, we gotta go in order. So, if you haven't seen this show, I would highly recommend not spoiling yourself for this season. Everyone wants you to reach this season for a reason, okay? Alright, let's do this. At the bottom, number 10, we have Episode 1, the premiere, VALAR DOHAERIS. It's a slow start to the season, honestly, which is common for Game of Thrones. It's all about setting the stage for all of our characters following the events of Blackwater and Valar Morghulis in Season 2. I would say the series becomes more interesting and intriguing as it moves along, and because we know all these characters by now, there's less exposition required to understand everything. We do get a standout moment in the TYWIN and TYRION scene, where TYWIN utterly destroys any notion that Tyrion will be rewarded for his bravery. We knew TYWIN didn't like his son, but this was just devastating to watch. How can a father hate his son so much? Other than that, the premiere doesn't have much else to it, unfortunately. But don't worry, this season won't be slow for long. Number 9, we have Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. This is really where we start to notice the sheer amount of storylines we have in this show. The premiere managed to leave out 4 whole storylines, so this episode ends up being the premiere part 2, pretty much. More exciting developments, however, and storylines that are reintroduced move along quickly enough. I've always loved how the Hound immediately notices Arya, which gives us a spike of excitement in an otherwise set-up-y episode. And we do get one standout moment with the Jaime versus Brienne fight. I mean, come on, we all wanted to see these two fight at some point. We're still not quite in the era of the show having fantastic fight choreography, but it's serviceable for here. Season 3 is good though, because this is the last setup episode of the entire season pretty much. Number 8. Episode 7, The Bear and the Maiden Fair. Despite already going through most of the setup, we do slow down a bit in the middle of the season. This episode and the next episode are practically tied for me, honestly. Both are perfectly fine episodes of Game of Thrones. Some stuff's a little slow, while others are very entertaining. I gotta give it up for the Jaime Brienne storyline. This is the highlight story of the season, no one denies it. And this episode completes Jaime's redemption arc of the season. The standout moment is, of course, him saving Brienne from the bear. I gotta say, something I didn't remember is when the bear gets shot with an arrow, Locke goes off on this guy, yelling, "The f*** you doing to my bear?" That actually made me bust out laughing for some reason. But anyway, this scene's awesome. I love the tense moment where Jaime challenges the logic of killing him to Locke, and everyone is just staring and waiting. This is the most intense and passionate we've ever seen Jaime, and it's glorious. Number 7, Episode 6, The Climb. Continuing the mid-season slowdown, we got a good amount of storylines to catch up on that we haven't seen in an episode or two. Nothing terribly boring or super lit, so we end up with a perfectly solid episode of Game of Thrones. Standout moments include Peter Baelish's "Chaos is a ladder" speech, a classic moment in Game of Thrones, one of the few times we have narration or dialogue over other scenes. The reveal of Ross's horrible death is great, and then Sansa's cry face realizing all her hopes are gone. Oh man, I honestly think this is the best cry face Sophie Turner's ever done in the series. I mean, just look at her. God, you feel bad for her. Finally, everything in climbing the wall and Jon and Ygritte was fun, but the standout moment is the very last shot of the episode. Here we have two star-crossed lovers on opposite sides of a war embracing each other at the top of the world. It's a beautiful moment and one of, if not literally the only time Game of Thrones has ever ended an episode on a pure happy note. No death or badassery, just innocence and peace. In a dark and depressing show like Game of Thrones, these joyful moments stand out and mean so much more. Number 6. Episode 3, Walk of Punishment. Very well done episode. Everything has fallen into place for the bloody and depressing season ahead. But first, there's more than a few comedic moments this episode, all without dialogue. We begin with Edmure Tully failing to hit his target, and the musical chairs in the small council chamber. Game of Thrones can be comedic at times, but this episode stood out to me. Also, this episode really made me realize that Daenerys this season is the most ruthless and calculating she ever is. After this season, she becomes plagued with personal issues and switches between being unsure of herself to being overly confident. I feel like this season she struck a good balance because she comes across as so perfectly confident in the negotiation scene. And knowing what comes soon further proves my point. But by far, the standout moment of the episode is Jaime losing his hand. Silver moment for sure. This stunned me more than most of the series. In the grand scheme of things, it's not as big as many others, but it really got to me. It's the fact that the entire scene, we're not sure if this new northern guy Locke is smart or gullible. So we just assume, hey, Jaime's being nice for once, good for him. But Locke reveals his true nature and wham! Permanently cripples Jaime and changing his character arc forever. Alright, now I got a lot to talk about for these next episodes. Number 5 is Episode 10, the finale, MHYSA. I know, a finale this low? Yeah. This is honestly a weak finale for the most part. We get conclusions to all our storylines as usual, but it's mostly aftermath of the big moment in its preceding episode. The only reason this episode squeaks by with a cyan is we do get plenty of payoff, and there's a good amount of moments. 5 in fact. First, the entire aftermath of the big moment is horrible, but the worst part is when we see ROBB's body paraded around, horrifically desecrated with Grey Wind's head sewed in place of his own. It's tough enough killing off a major character, especially a hero, especially the hero who is supposed to avenge the previously killed hero, but it's even worse when we see this dead second hero's corpse paraded around like a joke. This image is just haunting. Okay, enough of that. Next is a scene not many people really talk about, but it's a surprise silver for me. The small council meeting concerning the big moment. Every character is just on fire here. Tyrion insulting Joffrey, Joffrey being a pompous prick, Tywin shutting him down. This whole scene is full of fantastic character moments. When Joffrey challenges Tywin, everyone is on edge. You do not insult Tywin Lannister. Next moment, Arya's first real kill. This is the start of the scary and brutal Arya we get to know. This poor girl is broken beyond repair at this point, and the way she tricks this dickhead and shanks his neck over and over is so brutal and satisfying. Then the Hound coming in to rescue her and not even being mad about the whole thing is icing on the cake. These two are going to be a great duo to watch. Next, God, we got a lot of moments, is Jon and Ygritte saying goodbye. Yeah, this is pretty dang sad. We all love this couple, and they both loved each other. I really love how Jon survives 3 f***ing arrows. Like, Ygritte warned him not to betray her, and 3 arrows is a big punishment. But Jon's a boss and survives because he's a boss. Finally, Jaime returns home. It's a simple moment. This hateful character just went on the journey of a lifetime that completely changed our view of him and him of himself. And the soft way he says Cersei always gets to me. This finale had a lot happen, but unfortunately was disappointing because it wasn't particularly exciting like finale should be. I still like it, but I understand that people wanted a bit more. Number 4. Episode 4, and now his watch is ended. This is a fire episode. However, not as fire as many others would say. I'm going to talk about the negatives before I get into the amazing positives. First of all, this episode is really remembered for 2 big moments. Sure, there are some other good scenes, but it slows way down in the middle. I think a lot of viewers remember an episode based on its biggest moments. So, for example, some were probably disappointed that it didn't have Season 1's BAELOR as a blue or even a purple. That's fair. Maybe you enjoy the whole episode more than me. But I'll bet my money that it's really just because of Ned's execution. I rank these episodes as a whole, and single out specific amazing moments if they warrant it. So, knowing that this episode is often ranked in the top 10 of the whole series, I have to disagree. I think it's a great episode, a cyan, but not as amazing as people would say. So let me point out the standout moments of this episode because I really want to talk about what I love. The first scene, Jaime's hopeless fight. This is the saddest and most sympathetic you ever feel for Jaime. Freshly lost his hand, wearing it around his neck, starved and chained, sludging in the crap and mud, drinking horse piss and getting beaten up. God, I feel bad for him, but I applaud him for lashing out in any way that he can. Okay, alright, now time for the 2 big ones, both of which are silver. Let's go. First one, the Night's Watch mutiny. Holy balls, what a horrific scene. We all could feel the dominoes getting ready to fall, but little did we know how hard they would collapse. Carl Tanner shoves a knife up Craster's well-deserved throat. Boom! Then Rast backstabs Commander Mormont. What? And now everyone's fighting and Sam's fleeing for his life. Holy crap, this was thrilling. I especially love the horns that sound off when Rast stabs Gior. Like, you know it's kicking off now. And finally, the climax of the episode, Daenerys tricks the Masters. I love rewatching her scenes this season, knowing that she could understand this dickhead the whole time. This is Daenerys at her most pragmatic and efficient. It is so satisfying to see her dragon scorch the bastard and command her new army to sack the city. Many people remember this episode as a surprise standout, seeing as how it's in the middle of the season when usually setup is still happening. There still is plenty of setup this episode, don't get me wrong, but these standout moments really do stand out for the season. At number 3, we have Episode 8, Second Sons. Nearing the end of the season always means great payoffs and heightened stakes. It's essential storytelling for the ending to be the most epic part of the story, and Game of Thrones almost never fails when it comes to this idea. Second Sons, the first time I watched it, I was on edge nearly the entire time, all because of the main storyline, Tyrion and Sansa's wedding. Joffrey's cruelty is reinvigorated here. Like, honestly, we all forgot how bad he could be until this episode. At every turn, he is humiliating his 2 favorite victims, and Tyrion's utter misery bubbles with rage that you can feel the entire hour. If the whole episode was just focused on this, it'd be a blue. I love these scenes. They bring 3 standout moments. First, Tywin's fatherly chat with his drunken son. It's such a cute moment when Tywin takes Tyrion's cup away. Look at Tyrion's face. He looks like a kid who's mad because his toy got taken away. And the moment where Tyrion reminds his father what he once called him, a drunken little lustful beast. Tywin can't help but make a smirk. They hate each other, but Tyrion is always on the same level as Tywin in wits and cleverness, even wasted out of his mind. Next, remember that bubbling rage? Well, it finally comes out in this silver moment when Tyrion threatens Joffrey. Whoa, if this doesn't make you clench in fear, I don't know what will. And Tywin coming in to save Tyrion and then Tyrion playing along is just brilliant. Once again, these two characters are always on the same level. And finally, the moment we waited for the whole episode, will Tyrion consummate the marriage? And in the end, he doesn't, cause he is my man Tyrion. He won't share her bed until she wants him to. And what if she never wants him to? And so my watch begins. Funny and clever, but also sad. That's Tyrion for you. The episode had other good moments and storylines, but when I think of Second Sons, I think of Tyrion's horrible, no good wedding. Number 2, this is a surprise pick. Episode 5, Kissed by Fire. Lots going on this episode, every scene is entertaining, and even the ones that aren't the most interesting are short and few and far between. It's alarming how much happens in this episode, especially for a mid-season episode. Lots of standout moments, so let's go. Right away, the Hound versus Beric Dondarrion, which is a solid duel. My favorite part is when Beric is resurrected, which always stuns first-time viewers. Also, Arya being so pissed and trying to kill the Hound is fantastic. Next, Jon and Ygritte hook up, finally! Possibly the fan-favorite couple of the entire show. It's so nice to finally see Jon, happy, you know? And the fact that the actors actually got married in real life makes this even sweeter. Next up is a double. The first half, Rickard Karstark in trouble. Killing 2 kids is big, but I love Robb's absolute rage towards Karstark in the next scene. Here he is at his most kingly and ferocious. This entire sequence brings up such a difficult moral dilemma. Execute a traitor because it is right and you can't trust him. If you let this traitor live, others will possibly betray you as well. Or let him live to keep half your army so you can win this war. Ultimately, Robb chooses to execute Karstark, which is a silver moment. Pay the iron price makes a perfect return for this scene. The pouring rain fills the dark atmosphere. Karstark's last words are haunting, and Robb clenching his shaking fist is a wonderful detail. Robb makes mistakes, but he sticks to his guns, and that's why he's one of my favorites. Finally, a big scene, another silver moment, Jaime's confession. This changes everything for the character of Jaime Lannister. Before, there was nothing inherently likable about him, other than he had savage roasts and saved Brienne from getting raped, but this takes the Kingslayer and completely twists it around. You now realize he's been hated for 17 years for something that was actually a good thing. Nikolai's acting in the scene is some of the best acting in the entire series in my opinion. Just such a haunting scene that I always get emotional watching. Kissed by Fire was a phenomenal episode that almost squeaks into blue territory because it has a lot going on and hardly any moments where it slows down. Well done. And at number 1, my favorite episode of season 3 is without a doubt The Reigns of Castamere, Episode 9. What other episode could it have been? Any fan of Game of Thrones both anticipates and dreads this episode. We have a phrase that a new viewer of Game of Thrones is a sweet summer child until they reach this episode. After this, everything is different. I've on purpose not said the name of the event because the words alone sparked such a huge flashback of PTSD that I wanted to wait to the last second. But before that, let me explain why this episode is only a blue. Every other storyline I do find interesting. Jon betraying Ygritte is a standout moment that we all saw coming at some point. I never quite understood why he knocks her over, even though she was trying to help, but for a moment, it was them against the world. But also Jon telling Orell, "You were right the whole time," is a fantastically satisfying line. Also, Daenerys' storyline is interesting too. Standout moment being a not too bad choreographed fight scene with Jorah, Daario, and Grey Worm. Boom! Double team. These are good storylines, but they do kind of distract from the main event, Robb and Catelyn's storyline. If this episode was just this, it would be a purple, hands down. If you know what happens, you're on edge the whole time. If you don't know what happens, you're on edge the whole time. The whole episode gives you this feeling that something's about to go wrong, but you don't know how badly things will go wrong. No moment in my entire life has ever shocked me more than the Red Wedding. This is, without a doubt, a gold moment. I mean, come on, this is what gold moments were made for. It's roughly 7 minutes of pure carnage and horror. After Ned died, we were sad. He was a hero, and we all wanted his son Robb to avenge him. And that's what usually happens. The son avenges the father. George R.R. Martin wanted to subvert every fantasy trope, and he knew this one was a big one, and so he subverted it. This moment is what made the showrunners want to adapt the books in the first place. They have said that this was their main goal. If they could reach the Red Wedding and share it with the world, they would be happy. And thank God that they did. This is what makes me want to show people the show, because this moment is so insane. Being shocking isn't enough. Most people are expecting a betrayal. Like, things are too happy this whole episode, something's gonna go wrong. But the show goes above and beyond. The good guys aren't just betrayed, they're slaughtered. Everyone dies. Robb Stark, his mother, his wife, his unborn child, his direwolf, his whole army. Robb Stark doesn't just lose the war, he loses everything. Everyone dies horrifically. No heroic sacrifices, and there's no silver lining. No new Stark to avenge the dead ones. No new hero, really. That's it. There have been 2 times in the show where I've seen people struggle to keep watching because you just feel like there's no hope. This is one of them. The other, we haven't reached yet. But the Red Wedding remains one of the most powerful moments of entertainment I've ever witnessed. And the choice to play the end credits in silence is a perfect decision. Just let us sit in silence to soak in what we just watched. I watched this with my friend today, and we've both seen this moment dozens of times. But when those credits rolled, we just sat there. We didn't say a word. That's how powerful the Red Wedding is. And that is why, without a doubt, this episode is number 1. So what's our final stats? We started off with a single yellow-green, then had 4 greens sprinkled throughout, followed by 4 cyans to match the greens, and a blue that was of course episode 9. That adds up to an even 4.0, a perfect GPA, well done. Because I had so many moments, especially silvers, I'm gonna list my top 10 moments of the season. I'm also not gonna talk much about them because I already have in this video is long enough as is. Alright, number 10, Tyrion makes Tywin smile. Just drunken Tyrion and mad Tywin, just any scene with them is amazing, but this one's great. Number 9, Jon and Ygritte say goodbye. Sad, you feel bad for them. Jon gets shot with 3 arrows but keeps going because he's a boss. Number 8, Jaime's confession. I'm sure a lot of people would have this one higher. It's still a silver. I still love it. Some of the best acting I've ever seen. Just fantastic monologue, well done. Number 7, the small council meeting. This one I don't think anyone would have up here, but I love it because every character's on fire here and you get several great moments. Tyrion threatening Joffrey and Tywin getting pissed off at Joffrey. It's a great all around. Number 6, Robb executes Rickard. A horrible mistake. This is the fall of Robb Stark. You feel so bad, but it's so awesome and well done. Number 5, Tyrion threatens Joffrey. Holy crap, Tyrion's gonna die. He's gonna die. He's gonna die. But God bless him for being the only man to stand up to Joffrey like that and tell him what he really is. Number 4, Jaime loses his hand. One of the most shocking moments in the series to me. I mean, this just stunned me when it first happened. Number 3, Dany tricks the Masters. This was Daenerys at her peak, in my opinion. This is such a satisfying scene. One of the few betrayals of the show that we actually love. Number 2, the Night's Watch mutiny. A betrayal we don't like. Sure, Craster getting killed is awesome, but then Jeor Mormont's death is not awesome, and it all falls apart, and it's horrific, and violent, and unfair, and it's Game of Thrones, and I love it. And number 1, without a doubt, the golden moment of the season is the Red Wedding. I've already talked about this moment enough, but the Red Wedding still remains one of my favorite things I've ever witnessed in anything ever. It's the most shocking moment I've ever witnessed. It's a coined term now. Whenever you're killing off a bunch of main characters, like at the end of Infinity War, that's a they pulled a Red Wedding, Marvel pulled a Red Wedding, and that's because of Game of Thrones. So, at the end of it all, even though this season of Game of Thrones is only 0.1 higher than Season 2 and 0.2 higher than Season 1, I can safely say this season is worthy of a blue. I love the dark atmosphere of the whole season, and the intrigue is more intriguing, I guess. I find myself thoroughly entertained throughout, even in the slower parts. We don't have nearly as much build-up as Season 2, and the climax of the season, the Red Wedding, beats the climax of Season 1. Season 3 is where Game of Thrones is becoming the show I fell in love with. Next Wednesday, I'll be ranking Season 4, which I'm sure everyone is excited for. I am too. My documents detailing my rankings are in the description below. Please share your rankings because that's why I love doing this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in Season 4. See ya.